All right, peace and blessings, everybody. This is Rudy. It's Monday, September the 25th, the year 2017, and my wife has been at work up in the barn, but she did coordinate all of my books in one bookshelf, my Cisco books. You guys see that? I used to have them numerically numbered so that I could get to them easy. And there was a time in my life when I poured into my life and effort and resources into these books, because I wanted to be the best Cisco engineer that I could be. I enjoyed working at Cisco at one time, and it was a very satisfying job. I want to talk a little bit about that today. These are two CCIEs. My CCIE number is 1940. I'm still active at this point in time, although I probably will not recertify. This one is in WAN switching, and this one is in routing and switching. So I'm going to stop the video, go back down to the desk, and I want to tell you my Cisco story, and we'll do that. All right, peace and blessings, everybody. It's Rudy Davis. Monday, September the 25th, the year 2017. You just saw a collection of books and some of the awards that one collects over a 20-year career at Cisco Systems. I'm going to tell you my story, my work history, and it was just on my mind this morning. It was a good opportunity to do it, and if nothing else, it'll be counsel and advice for young people that are starting out their career, and give you something to think about. You know, just it's one additional data point as you make decisions that will affect your career for the rest of your life. You know, when I graduated college, Southern Methodist University, I had a major in electrical engineering, a minor in mechanical engineering. I had a pretty good grade point average. I went there on a scholarship from Spruce High School. Texas Instruments is the one who offered the scholarship, and you had to maintain a certain grade point average. And so, you know, working for Texas Instruments was a very good experience. I met a lot of good people, a lot of hard-working people. You know, if you applied yourself, you progressed. And then from Texas Instruments, I went to a company called Ungerman Bass. I stayed at TI for 10 years, by the way. Ungerman Bass, I probably stayed there for 3 or 4 or 5 years. I don't remember the exact amount of time. And then I went to Cisco, and I stayed there just a few days short of 20 years before a foreigner liberal lady fired me. But I'll get to that. But what I wanted to share is, when I went to work for Cisco Systems, I was hired on August the 8th, 1997. And so August the 8th of 2017 would have been my 20th anniversary. I was gung-ho for the world, right? I wanted to make an impact. I wanted to be the best engineer that I could be. I studied and I got a CCIE in routing and switching, which was considered, you know, a pretty good thing at that point in time. I followed it up with a WAN switching CCIE. Later on in my career, when my boss asked me what my CCIE was in, she didn't even realize I had 2 of them, and I just told her it was WAN switching, and she said, "What's that?" I said, "ATM." She cackled like a wicked witch, like, you know, that's obsolete. You know, but that's one of the dangers. One of my CCIEs did become obsolete because it was ATM WAN switching, and the technology changes so fast that you can put a lot of time and effort in a particular technology and it will become obsolete on you. But let's go back to my Cisco career, because I want to explain why now when I see anything that has anything to do with Cisco, I hate it. I hate that that's the case too. And I don't wish any success upon the company. I kind of despise the company, although there's still a lot of good people working there. But it's turned so liberal, and I'll give you examples of that. But when I first started working there, they had me assigned to some of the most prestigious companies that Cisco had to offer. For instance, PepsiCo, Fidelity, AT&T, you know, all kinds of various wide area switching networks. And we would, you know, basically I worked in a group called Advanced Services. I also worked in TAC, you know, Technical Assistance Center, TAC, the Cisco TAC. You take priority 1 calls, priority 2 calls, and you work various trouble calls from customers at Cisco. But as part of advanced services, where I spent a large portion of my career, you're assigned a customer and you develop a relationship with that customer and you get to know their network and you make recommendations regarding the network about what code they should run. You run bug scrubs. I could go in and talk about bug scrubs for hours. I think bug scrubs was the beginning of the end of my career, because you started to put all your time and effort into looking into the code and finding software problems with the code that your customer was running, and you didn't keep up to date with a lot of the latest technologies. But multicasting, routing and switching, ATM, MPLS, quality of service, the IP phones, unified communications, teleconferencing. I mean, all of this stuff was a part of Cisco and all of the things that they have to offer. And so when you were in advanced services, you were the engineer that represented Cisco. The salespeople did the sales thing, but the engineer was supposed to be where the rubber hit the road. And so you had to develop a relationship with your customers. And if they didn't trust the engineer, they would ask for a new one. You had to be, where the buck stops. The sales guy could get away with saying anything he wanted to say. But when the engineer said something, it better be exactly true, because they were going to depend upon that for their networks to work. So I worked with a lot of good people. There's a lot of good people at Cisco. They're very intellectual. Some of them, I met some of the most smartest technical people I've ever met in my life when it comes to networks and computers, but they don't have a good sense of justice issues or worldly politics. Matter of fact, during the later part of my career, I saw John Chambers sit at a table with Barack Obama, who has a forged birth certificate, and he lifted up a toast. It was just sickening to watch the CEO of the company I worked for sit at a table with a foreigner fraud. Now, you might say that I'm sounding like a disgruntled employee, because many of you know that they recently laid me off just a few days short of my 20th anniversary. And there may be something to that. I might be a little bit of a disgruntled employee, but I never let the fact that I work for Cisco keep me from speaking my mind on my own YouTube channel. When I went to Cisco, I did what Cisco wanted me to do for the time that I was there. And I gave them an honest day's work for an honest day's pay. And then when I left Cisco, I would put all my extra time into activism, protesting abortion, standing up against Obama's forged birth certificate, promoting the Bible as the King James Bible as the perfect word of God. I didn't let my work job stop me from speaking my mind on YouTube and going out into the marketplace and the public square. I just didn't, because I wanted Cisco to get an honest day's work. Now, like I said, I was assigned to some of the biggest customers Cisco had. I opened up more bugs. I mean, if you go into their bug database and type in the name Rudy Davis, you're going to see a ton of bugs that was opened by me on all kinds of different codes. And like I said, I worked with some very brilliant people, and I learned from them. Hopefully they learned a little bit from me, but I was around some very intellectual people when it comes to computers and networking, and I appreciate those times. But what I learned as I spent 20 years at Cisco is that, if you're an engineer-oriented person and you want to make things work and you're design-oriented and you come from the perspective of, well, I'm here just for the facts. I'm not here as an ambitious person wanting to climb the corporate ladder. I just like making things work. I like fixing things. I like designing things. I like working with customers to fix problems. Then there are people that are really good at Excel spreadsheets, and that's all they're good at, and they're good at managerial things, managerial, how to manage people, and they will far surpass you when they climb the corporate ladder, because that's the people that get selected for promotion at Cisco, not the people that, they'll get a bonus. They'll throw a bone to the guy who spends 80 hours a week, sleeps in the lab, runs 24-hour tests to find an anomaly, an intermittent random anomaly on a particular piece of code or hardware. They'll throw him a bone every now and then, but the people who are raking in the money are the managers who know how to manage people and make presentations. And from my experience, I ran into a few that were a part of these swinger parties where you bring your wife and somebody else's friend will bring their wife, and you have sex with his wife, and he'll have sex with your wife, and it's all done in the same room, and you know, it's there is some of that going on at Cisco now. Whether it's everyone at Cisco, I can't really tell you, but I can tell you it's going on. And I heard people brag about it, and as soon as they found out I wasn't very approving of that sort of behavior, you know, I wasn't included in those conversations anymore. But, you know, it's everywhere, right? That kind of behavior is everywhere. And I was not always perfect myself. During my time at Cisco, most of it, I was not a Christian following after the ways of the Lord. A lot of times I was a cusser, man. I was, every foul word that you can possibly imagine was constantly coming out of my mouth when things didn't work as expected, or, you know, the design didn't perform as we anticipated. And so I'm not saying I was, you know, Mr. Boy Scout, but I didn't engage in like any of that perverted swinger activity that I knew other people were engaging in. So that was my first eye-opening experience, to have, you know, high-level managers at Cisco engaged in that sort of behavior. And then later on in my career, I got moved to a group which isn't so technical. It's more dealing with partners and putting documentation together and promoting ideas. Now, the majority of that group is not American. They come from, you know, the managers of that group, one lady named Carrie Lampard, you can look her up. She's wants to, you know, promote herself as a businesswoman who's climbing the ladder of corporate ladder, and she's got big ambitions. She was assigned to my boss, and I think she lived in Singapore, was from Australia, but she would always complain about not being American. There's a special passport that Americans can get that lets you go through the customs line very quickly, and she complained that she never could get that because she didn't, you know, she wasn't an American. She loved Hillary Clinton. She didn't make it a secret that she loved Hillary Clinton. We got into a conversation about guns, and she said that when Australia gave up their guns, they no longer had any crime. I sent her Innocence Betrayed, the history of gun control in the world, and I don't know if she watched it or not, but she didn't like the fact that I like guns. Matter of fact, when we would have our meetings, because she had employees from all over the world, she would have her employees give 5-minute presentations. It's called Fun, and the employee would like give a taste of the culture that they lived in. So you would have a guy in the United Kingdom or Europe give a presentation and have pictures of food and restaurants in Europe. Another guy would live in California, and he would do the California thing. Another guy would, you know, put up a presentation of Tear Down That Wall, Mr. Gorbachev. And you could tell because Carrie was very, very liberal in her thinking, and she openly spoke bad about Donald Trump to me. I didn't really bring my politics to work, but she would badmouth Donald Trump and his position on gays and transvestites and stuff like that. But when it came time, you know, for me to do my fun, I had a presentation that I wanted to present, and it was going to be me and my family with our 2 sons going to the gun range. I was going to show a video of Aaron shooting the 50 cal, getting a bullseye at 100 yards, and us all standing together with our rifles on our shoulder. And I was going to do a Texas presentation, but she went through the entire group 2 different times, and I never got a chance to do my 5-minute fun. Now, that may seem like a small deal, right, over a 20-year career, but it's something that sticks in my mind, is that she never wanted me to have a chance to speak in front of the group to share my cultural values, because she knew that I was from Texas and I was pro-freedom, pro-constitution, pro-gun, and she didn't want me ever like bringing those values up in a fun way in front of the group. So that's one thing that I thought was interesting about her. The other thing that was interesting about advanced services in general, like I told you, John Chambers had dinner with Barack Obama, and there's a picture on the internet of them toasting one another. It made me sick because I knew Barack Obama wasn't the legitimate president. He had put out a forged birth certificate. And all these people at Cisco are supposed to be incredibly smart, incredibly brilliant, yet none of them would talk about how Obama's birth certificate is a proven forgery. So when Trump got elected, I'm not a fan of Trump either. Anybody who knows me knows that I don't really advocate for Trump. I consider him like he should be sitting in the ninth circuit of hell, ninth level of hell, ninth circle of hell. Because I think it was on September the 16th, a year ago, he got in front of the camera and said Barack Obama was born in America. That ends the story. Well, as soon as Trump did that, I'm no longer a fan of Trump, right? So don't think of me. They always thought I was going to like argue in favor of Trump, but it's like I didn't like Obama or Trump, you know. But anyway, we went to an all hands meeting, advanced services all hands meeting, and they had a guy in Europe, and he's one of these sugar bears. They got nicknames for all these faggots that like to talk about being a faggot, and he looks like a burly guy, like a burly European guy, but they gave him 30 minutes to talk about LGBT pride. This is supposed to be an engineering meeting where we're talking about the engineering objectives for the company, and yet they gave 30 minutes to this sugar bear, and he talked about how there's many faggots all throughout Cisco, and they're all watching upper management, and if they don't do the right thing, then the faggots will protest against management, and they better do the right thing. And he also went on to tell us that, you know, when a sugar bear comes back from vacation, don't ask him how his wife did or how his family did, because it puts things in an awkward situation. So we shouldn't use the word wife or husband, we should use the word partner. And even the manager of Cisco advocated that type of language. And it made me want to vomit, watching the sugar bear speak for like 30 minutes, telling me that I shouldn't use the word husband and wife. So I didn't, you know, I was already getting pretty disgusted with the company by the time they laid me off. And here's another thing that I believe probably happened, is that people that watch my YouTube channel were fed information by the federal government, and people that hate me, I'm sure called my company and shared with them some of my more vitriolic videos. And so Carrie, when she had an opportunity to lay me off, she took full advantage of that. But another thing that happened is we had a team meeting in California. My plane got delayed because of weather in Dallas, and so I was held over another day. There was a man by the name of Keith, and Keith was in my team, and he asked if I wanted to go to dinner, and I said sure. So we went around, and there was a place in California had a bunch of restaurants and, you know, fancy places to shop, and you could tell it was really upper class. Anyway, Keith wanted to walk around and have dinner. We did. He talked about lifting weights. I talked about the prison ministry. He showed me a picture of him lifting weights and said he was in a competition, right? I told him about the prison ministry and Sean Stuller, and how Sean Stuller walked into a house and it was the wrong house, and Sean was on drugs and got 20 years. Anyway, there was a candle at the table, but there was candles at everybody's table, and it was well lit. It wasn't a gay bar or anything like that. But I did have dinner with this guy, and my wife always jokes about it now, and it is kind of funny, although I don't want you guys joking about it because it make me mad. But anyway, I'm kind of telling the story on myself. So anyway, we get back, and like maybe 4 or 5 months later, Carrie announces to the team that Keith needs to spend 30 minutes with everybody on the team. And I thought he was leaving the company. I thought, well, he's leaving the company, he just wants to say bye. And I said, well, is he leaving, Carrie? And she said, no, he's not leaving. He just wants to spend 30 minutes with talking to everybody. Well, anyway, he calls my home, and he goes to describe how he's got gender dysphoria, and that he's been mixed up about whether he should be a man or a woman, and that he's no longer to be called Keith, that from now on everybody at the company should call him Cheryl. He's going to wear a wig and lipstick, and he bragged about how he's even better looking than Carrie. You know, because Carrie's a pretty good looking lady if you look her up on the internet, and that's probably why she'll get some of the advancements that she'll get in that company. But when Keith started to tell me all this, you know, I was running through my mind, I was like, oh my goodness, you know, it's like, this is hitting really close to home. You see this transvestite faggot stuff on TV, you see them protesting in the streets, but now this is like, it's happening right in my workplace with my own people that I work with. I didn't really say anything negative to Keith, who wanted to be called, he went as far as changing his picture in the directory to having the wig and the lipstick, and now he's going to change his email address. It's going to be like Cheryl at Cisco as opposed to Keith at Cisco. Well, anyway, everybody in the group was very gracious. Everybody called him Cheryl. I might have even called him Cheryl a couple of times, although I think I slipped a few times and I said dude in our conversation, and I'm sure he got very offended at that. Well, a few months later, even after that announcement, Cheryl / Keith, he / she, whatever, got leukemia. Well, everybody took up a collection of money to, you know, send him flowers, or I don't, you know, whatever. I participated. I gave money. I was like, you know, I didn't I may not like none of that stuff, and it may, but I didn't want him to get leukemia. But if so I participated in that. Carrie had a problem with her appendix when she was visiting, and they took up a collection for that, and I participated. But I think Carrie disliked me so much because of my political beliefs that it caused her mind to be impacted on how she viewed my work. And because she knew that I had extracurricular activities for activism, for constitutional conservatism, she looked for reasons to lay me off. And so Cisco had to lay off, and they laid me off. And so my 20 years at Cisco came to an end. Now I'll say this, it was just a few days before my 20th anniversary, I was going to pass what's called a CCIE recert, and I had been studying for it. There's no doubt in my mind that I would have passed it. But because they laid me off and it's a $300 exam, I didn't take it. But I'm still certified for another 2 years, but I would have taken it had I been employed by Cisco, because they would have reimbursed me the $300. I would have got another 2-year extension on my certification. I think they picked the timing of that to specifically hurt me, because I don't know what happens at 20 years, but whatever happens, I'll never know, because they laid me off a few days before my 20 years. Not only that, but they knew my CCIE recert was coming up, and they knew I was going to pass it. And if you pass your CCIE recert, you get a bonus. You get some kind of award, and they didn't have to give me that award because they fired me just a few days before. And for any young people, okay, let me go back to. I hope this. I'm just kind of sharing my story, right? Because from my perspective, when I was young and I didn't know the Lord, I didn't know Jesus Christ, I wanted to be wealthy. Everybody wants to be wealthy. Everybody wants to have a lot of money so that you can be independent. That's why I wanted to be wealthy, because I could be independent, do what I want to do, and I didn't have to like grovel for a paycheck. Now, I poured all of my time into my work. I mean, I literally became a workaholic. My first wife, who's now dead from cancer, suffered because of that, because I didn't hardly spend any time as I should have as a family man. I believe my son suffered for that because I worked all the time. But you go through life and you learn and you try to make adjustments. So I will be 51 here in a little bit. I understand the importance of life. I understand, the importance and what priorities should be made in life with our relationships with our loved one. I'm still grateful that I had the experience of working for these IT companies like Texas Instruments and Ungerman Bass and Cisco Systems. It did allow me to save a little bit of money, but back when Cisco stock was even higher than Microsoft, there was a point in time where Cisco was most valued company in the world, even higher than Microsoft. And I was doing very well financially during that period of time, but I didn't sell. I always thought I'll just keep my stock until I die. And all of my stock that I had accumulated went to nothing. And matter of fact, I lost money. And there's many stories like that in Cisco. And so what you learn after you lose that amount of money in life is you learn a lot of character, right? Because I didn't have any sort of family that ever had any money, and they never told me to invest in solid assets like gold and silver or houses or real estate. And so when all the stock market went down the tubes at Cisco, I lost it all. And and I'm not the only one, right? A lot of people did that, but you get a lot of character, and you start to think to yourself, well, I'll just continue to work hard. But then you realize, well, I put 10 years, 15 years, eventually you're not young anymore, and you become like an older guy, and it's like, wow, looking back, there's always 20/20 vision about what you should have done. And so if you don't have mentors or people that are older in life that tells you how you should have invested your money, to put it in hard assets, to stay out of the stock market, it's all rigged, to stay away from fiat currency and scams, you're likely to fall into certain traps. Even if you put all of your time and effort into becoming the best engineer that you can be at Cisco, you don't have otherworldly knowledge that helps protect your wealth. You made it, but then you lose it because you don't understand the wickedness of the stock market or the wickedness of fiat currency. I would recommend you read The Creature from Jekyll Island by G. Edward Griffin to start your journey on that. But if you're a young person starting out, the lessons I would say is, if you're a conservative Christian young person, I don't see how you're ever going to find a technical company nowadays that's going to allow you to be you. When you go to work and they start promoting this LGBT, gender neutral crap, or they start promoting this one world order, anti-American, no borders stuff, you're going to be in the great minority, and you will be likely, they will, even if they don't outright condemn you openly in the meetings, they will look for reasons to get rid of you. And in hindsight, rather than putting all of my time and all of my effort and all my intellectual effort into a company that really went high and then I lost it all in the stock market, I would have probably done things to start my own business, right? To become a person who, builds your own business, even if it's small and it doesn't, allow you the prestige of a big Fortune 500 company. You don't get to, have the big expense account. There are some pros in working as an engineer for Cisco. I mean, not so much now as there was in the very beginning days when they were, just a startup and they were buying companies left and right and advocating that people work for them. But later, you just need to, as a young person, you've got your whole life ahead of you. And before you invest your time, effort, research, your brain power into these companies, and then you realize at a later point in life, I've done all of this for somebody else's benefit, not for my own, and now they fired me, and what have I got to show for it? Yeah, I got a little bit of a package, but my dad worked for IBM for 30 years, and he got a pension that lasted the rest of his life, and that really helped him financially. There's no pension nowadays, right? Nobody gets a pension, after 20 years. They pay a little package and then, they say, get out of our hair. It doesn't matter that you put 20 years of your effort and now they've got some liberal, moxie, feminist, anti-American woman who's now the boss of you, who's looking for an opportunity to fire you. If you haven't made some sort of inroads with these swingers who are at the upper top of Cisco, then you're not going to have a chance to progress within the company. And if you don't compromise your principles, you're always going to be like, on the outs. And so my advice for anybody who's just starting out is look for ways where you can start your own company, or at least have ownership in the company that you're working with. The establishment has a way of being a vampire and sucking your life force over a long period of time and giving you just enough where you think it's worth it, but at the end you realize what a terrible mistake you made. Now, having said that, there's still a lot of good people working for Cisco, but I can't stand the management. The management has gone completely liberal. They will openly talk bad about conservative values in their all-hands meeting. They've got this people that attend meetings that are guys that dress up like girls, and they're openly promoted. Now, let me say this. Keith was given 30 minutes to call everyone on the team to talk about his life-changing decision, about how he decided to go from a man to a woman. How come me as a Christian is not allowed to spend 30 minutes to call everyone on the team and tell them that I found the Lord Jesus Christ, who has changed my life, renewed my mind, and has given me eternal life? Now, what if I called my boss and said, hey, I found Jesus. Do you mind if I get 30 minutes to call everyone on the team to share Jesus? No, she wouldn't let me do that, right? But she lets the transgender guy who wants to wear a wig and lipstick call everybody. And the new CEO, Chuck Robbins, he's no better. I mean, I went to various all-hands meetings with him, and he hem-hauls around, and he don't know what to do, and he's very non-committal. And he knows there's an issue because there's some people that like Trump, there's some people that don't. I don't like Trump or Obama, but you can tell he very heavily leans towards Obama one world principles, but he don't know what to do with these few folks in Cisco who still like Trump, and he tries to brush them aside, and it's absolutely incredible. But that's my Cisco story. I absolutely despise the company now. I mean, because I put so much time and effort into it, and they kicked me to the curb just before my 20th anniversary. And I know that I would have got a bonus for, you know, passing my CCIE. I might have a little bit of disgruntled employee in me. I'll get over that. I don't know what the Lord has in store, but I'm looking forward to it. I'm having fun every day. My wife and I, you know, we've been participating in some construction projects. I'm learning how to, you know, do mechanical things that I didn't have time to participate in before. And that was my minor in college, is mechanical engineering. So I'm loving learning about, you know, electrical things, mechanical things. And so I don't know what the Lord has in store, but I'm just going to keep trusting in the Lord. But I'll never, ever go back to Cisco. When I think of that company, I want to vomit. I think it's a compromised company. And if they go down the tubes just like IBM did when my father left, it wouldn't bother me one bit. There are still a good few people that are there, and I don't wish any harm upon them. But you know, just seeing John Chambers raise a toast to Barack Obama, that one image will stick with me forever. That one image right there. And anyway, that's all I got to say for today. God bless every one of you. Have a great day. And if you're a young person starting out, really, really, really pray and do a lot of thinking about where you want to spend your life and how you want to spend your career. And in a parting thought, your identity is not your job. For a long time of my life, I always introduced myself as, my name is, you know, Rudy Davis. I'm an electrical engineer and a CCIE working for Cisco Systems. That's how I used to introduce myself, right? But now I don't do that. I say, my name is Rudy Davis. I'm a Bible-believing follower of the Lord Jesus Christ. I don't care about those stupid awards. I don't care about the degrees. I don't care about the work history. My identity is not what I did for a living. Right? My identity is that I'm a follower of the Lord Jesus Christ, and that's how I introduce myself now. That's all I got to say. I don't know if this is useful to any of you guys, but that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. God bless you guys. The last line of peaceful defense between a tyrannical government and the defendant is jury nullification. Educate yourself about jury nullification at fija.org.